The city was finally quiet. The relentless buzz of meetings that had consumed Selene Avery's day faded into a distant hum, replaced by the soft glow of streetlights on empty streets. Stepping out of the towering glass building, she pulled her designer coat tighter around her, the satisfaction of closing a massive contract warming her more than the expensive fabric. Her mind was a whirlwind of numbers and negotiations, a testament to her sharp, fearless reputation. But as she walked toward her car, parked at the edge of the lot, a sudden craving for stillness, for a single breath of fresh night air, made her slow her pace. There it was, the sleek black car she recognized as hers. Or so she thought. Without a second glance, she opened the door and slid inside, her thoughts still on the day's victories. It took a moment for the subtle differences to register. The engine didn't purr with the same familiar smoothness. A faint, unfamiliar scent, something like worn leather and a hint of sandalwood, hung in the air. Before she could even process these inconsistencies, before her fingers could find the ignition, a deep voice sliced through the silence, startling her. "Wait? Whoa? Hold on." Her head whipped around. In the passenger seat sat a man, his eyes wide, his body frozen in surprise. Panic, cold and immediate, surged through Selene. Her mind, trained for worst-case scenarios in the boardroom, instantly defaulted to one conclusion. She had just walked into a robbery. Adrenaline took over. In a single, fluid motion, she slammed the car door shut, her thumb jabbing the central lock button. The click echoed in the small space. She turned to face him, her fear masked by a layer of pure fury. "What do you think you're doing in my car?" she demanded, her voice sharp and commanding, though her heart was hammering against her ribs. The man didn't flinch. Instead, he slowly raised his hands, a disarming gesture of peace. A nervous, yet surprisingly calm smile spread across his face. "I think," he said, his voice gentle, smooth, and deliberately calm. "You're in my car?" Selene blinked. The words hung in the air, slowly dismantling her panic and replacing it with a wave of hot confusion. Then came the embarrassment, a blush creeping up her neck and warming her cheeks. She had made a mistake. A ridiculous, mortifying mistake. She glanced around the interior again, this time really seeing it. The gear shift was different. The dashboard layout was unfamiliar. Her hypered, high-control world had just been appended by her own carelessness. But as she looked back at the man, Damon Cross, something in his expression made her pause. There was no anger, no annoyance, just a calm, honest amusement in his eyes. He was looking at her, not as an intruder, but as a fascinating puzzle. For a long, charged moment, they just stared at each other. Two strangers caught in the most awkward, unexpected situation imaginable. The silence was thick with unspoken questions. Finally, Selene's pride, her constant companion, kicked in. A sharp laugh escaped her lips, half nerves, half sheer disbelief at her own blunder. "I can't believe I did that," she muttered, shaking her head. She looked at him again, a wry smile now playing on her lips. I honestly thought you were a thief." Damon chuckled, a soft, warm sound that seemed to fill the car and settle her racing heart. And with that laugh, an unexpected flutter, a tiny, unfamiliar spark, ignited in Selene's chest. She felt the urge to apologize, to scramble out of his car and retreat back into her well-ordered life. But her curiosity held her captive. There was something magnetic about him, an unexplainable pull. It was as if fate, a concept she usually dismissed, had deliberately guided her to this wrong car, to this strange, and somehow perfect, encounter. "It's okay," he said finally, his eyes twinkling in the dim light. "Most people would have run screaming. But you? You locked me in with you. That's a unique approach." Selene tilted her head, intrigued. His calmness was baffling. She, who prided herself on being quick-witted and in control, was completely thrown off balance. And yet, Damon's composure made her feel not threatened, but strangely excited. The city lights cast shifting patterns across his dark hair and highlighted the kindness in his eyes. For the first time in a very long time, Selene Avery was not in control of the situation. And to her own astonishment, she didn't mind. She realized this small, embarrassing mistake had led her to someone she never would have met otherwise. The thought made her heart skip a beat. The silence stretched between them again, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was filled with a palpable tension, a silent conversation of curiosity and a budding attraction. Selene finally allowed herself to relax, the last of her fight-or-flight response melting away. This wasn't a robbery. This wasn't a threat. This was something else entirely. It felt like the opening scene of a story she hadn't planned on writing, a story she couldn't predict. And even though she was a millionaire, a woman accustomed to power and precision, in that moment, sitting in a stranger's car, she felt something utterly new. It was the thrill of the unknown, the electric buzz of a chance encounter, and a small, undeniable spark that promised the night was far from over. It had only just begun. After a few long, awkward moments, Celine finally pushed the car door open, a wave of embarrassment washing over her, mixed with a strange hint of curiosity. Damon, still smiling, got out and came around to hold the door for her. His calm, easy presence somehow made her heart pound even faster. She took a quick glance at him. He looked so ordinary, but there was something about his quiet confidence, the kindness in his eyes, that set him apart from anyone she'd ever met in her high-flying, glamorous world. I guess I got in the wrong car, she finally admitted, letting out a nervous laugh as she tucked a stray piece of hair behind her ear. Damon just shrugged, his smile so warm and genuine, it put her at ease. It happens to the best of us, he said. Then he added with a playful glint in his eye, though usually not two millionaires in designer coats. Celine laughed again, and this time it was real. Relaxed, they started walking toward her actual car, which was parked a few spots away. As they moved, the sky suddenly opened up. A heavy downpour started, drenching the entire parking lot in seconds. Celine groaned, realizing she didn't have an umbrella. Before she could even react, Damon was shrugging off his jacket and draping it over her shoulders. The small, simple gesture made her heart do a little flip. It was strange how protective he seemed, this man she'd just met by mistake. "Thanks," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. She looked up at him, a mix of shyness and intrigue swirling inside her. Damon just smiled. "Let's get you to your car before we both turn into puddles." As they reached her sleek, expansive vehicle, Celine couldn't help but notice how effortlessly Damon carried himself. The conversation flowed so naturally between them, as if they'd known each other for years. She found herself telling him things she never told anyone, how stressful her job could be, how lonely her penthouse felt some nights. She even told him a funny story about her cat. Damon listened, truly listened. He was genuinely interested, laughing at the right moments, his eyes crinkling at the corners. For the first time in a long, long time, Celine felt a sense of comfort she hadn't experienced with anyone outside her closest circle of friends. The rain was still pouring down, but it felt like time had slowed down just for them. The rest of the world, with its pressures and expectations, just faded away into the background. Then, her phone buzzed, a sharp intrusion into their bubble. It was a message from her assistant about an urgent meeting scheduled for the next morning. Celine frowned, the familiar weight of responsibility settling back onto her shoulders. Damon noticed the shift in her expression. "Don't worry about work right now," he said gently. "Some moments are too rare to miss." His words hit her like a lightning bolt. He was right. For the first time in what felt like forever, Celine allowed herself to just be present, to enjoy the beautiful chaos of this rainy night and the strange, thrilling connection she felt with this man. She started noticing the little things, the way his eyes lit up when he smiled, the relaxed ease in his movements, the comforting warmth in his voice. She couldn't help but wonder if this was fate, a random mistake that was meant to happen. As they finally stood by her car, Celine turned to him, a playful smile touching her lips. "You know," she said, "I should probably pay you for, saving me from the rain and my own foolishness." Damon chuckled, a low, pleasant sound. He shook his head. "No need for that, but I do hope this isn't the last time we meet." Her heart skipped a beat. She really, truly, hoped he meant it. Just then, the heavy rain slowed to a gentle drizzle, leaving the night air fresh and clean. The city lights sparkled in the puddles on the ground. In that quiet, beautiful moment, Celine felt something inside her shift, a mix of excitement, curiosity, and the faint, hopeful beginning of something she had never expected to find with a stranger in the wrong car. She had no idea what would happen next, but one thing was for sure. Her life had suddenly become a whole lot more The next day, Celine found it impossible to focus. Her mind, usually a fortress of spreadsheets and business strategies, had been breached. The invader man named Damon. Every time she closed her eyes, she was back in his car, the scent of leather and something uniquely him filling her senses. She saw his warm smile, the one that reached his eyes and crinkled the corners. She remembered the calm, steady way he handled the bizarre situation, turning a potentially awkward moment into something exciting. It was the surprising comfort she felt in his presence that puzzled her the most. She was a millionaire, a woman who commanded boardrooms, yet she had felt utterly at ease with a complete stranger. Who was he, really? And why did it feel like their accidental meeting was anything but? Meanwhile, across the city, Damon was having a similar problem. The image of Celine was seared into his memory. The way she carried herself with such confidence, the way her eyes held a spark of defiance and vulnerability all at once. He had driven countless people in his car, but none had made such a lasting impression. She was a world away from his own, a beautiful, powerful woman who had stumbled into his life by mistake. And yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that he wanted her to stumble back in. Later that afternoon, as Celine walked out of a high-rise office building, her mind still buzzing from a tense meeting, she saw him. Her heart did a little flip, a flutter she hadn't felt since she was a teenager. Across the street, leaning casually against a lamppost, as if he'd been waiting for her all his life, was Damon. He wasn't looking at his phone or watching the traffic. He was watching her. He lifted a hand and gave a small, confident wave. Without a second thought, abandoning all the caution she usually lived by, Celine crossed the street. "Hi," she said, her voice breathier than she intended. She tried for casual, but her pulse was racing. "Hi," he replied, that incredible smile spreading across his face again. "I had a feeling I might see you around here." They decided to get coffee, a simple, normal thing to do that felt monumental. Inside the cozy cafe, the world outside melted away. The conversation flowed even more easily than it had in the car. It wasn't just small talk. It was real. Damon asked about her work, not the company's valuation, but what she actually enjoyed about it. He asked about her dreams, the ones she kept hidden beneath layers of responsibility. He asked about the little things that made her happy. And to her own surprise, Celine found herself opening up. She told him things she hadn't confessed to anyone, not even her closest friends. She talked about her secret love for painting, a passion she'd sacrificed for her career. She admitted how much she enjoyed late-night walks alone, just to feel anonymous in the city that knew her name. And she confessed the deep, gnawing loneliness that sometimes came with success. Damon just listened. He didn't offer solutions or platitudes. He listened with a genuine interest that made her feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. He'd nod, his eyes full of understanding, and smile at just the right moments. A warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she'd almost forgotten existed. Halfway through her latte, a jolt of reality hit her. A memory flashed in her mind, getting into a stranger's car, the recklessness of it all. It could have been dangerous. Her security team would have had a fit. But then she looked across the table at Damon, at the kind eyes and gentle smile, and she knew that single, reckless decision had led her here, to this moment. Sitting with someone who made her feel more alive than she had in a decade. Damon noticed the shift in her expression. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice cutting through her thoughts. She looked up, a shy smile touching her lips. "Yes. I was just thinking about how unexpected life can be." A soft laugh escaped both of them, a shared sound that blended perfectly with the low hum of the cafe. In that moment, it was more than just attraction. It was a profound connection, a cocktail of comfort, trust, and an insatiable curiosity to know more. The afternoon sun streamed through the window, casting a golden glow on their table as they continued to talk. They discovered they both loved old black and white movies, preferred rainy days to sunny ones, and had both dreamed of traveling the world as kids. Each similarity felt like another thread weaving them together, making Celine's heart flutter with a hopeful, terrifying excitement. He mentioned that he volunteered at local animal shelters on weekends, and her heart clenched. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it spoke volumes about his character. This man wasn't just handsome, he was genuinely good. As they finally left the cafe, the sky was ablaze with the pink and orange hues of sunset. The day had vanished in a blur of conversation and laughter. Celine felt a potent mix of emotions and intense desire to see him again, tempered by a fear of moving too fast, of trusting this sudden, powerful bond. Damon walked her to her car, a gentleman to the end. When they reached the driver's side door, he took her hand to say goodbye, but he didn't let go right away. He held it for just a moment longer than necessary, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand. A jolt, like a gentle current of electricity, shot up her arm. It was a simple touch, yet it felt more intimate than any she had experienced before. And in that instant, Celine understood. Love at first sight wasn't just about physical attraction. It was this feeling of safety, of warmth, of being completely and utterly captivated by another person's soul. Driving home, a smile played on her lips. The city lights blurred past her window, but all she could see was his face. Her life, so meticulously planned and controlled, had just been beautifully, wonderfully directed. She had no idea what the future held, or where this path would lead. But one thing was certain. The mysterious, kind-hearted man who had started as a stranger in the wrong car was quickly becoming someone she couldn't imagine her life without. Damon had entered her world by accident, but it was already starting to feel a lot like destiny. A few days later, Celine was on her way to an important charity event. Dressed impeccably, she was just moments from her destination when a jolt of panic hit her. She'd left her invitation, in a small, but very valuable package, back in her office. Her mind raced. The event was starting soon. and security was strict. Without the invitation, she wouldn't get in. Frantically, she scrolled through her contacts. Her finger hovered over Damon's name. It was a long shot, but he was the only person who came to mind. She hesitated for only a second before dialing, not really expecting him to pick up. To her surprise, he answered on the second ring. His voice was calm, a stark contrast to her own frantic energy. "I'm on my way," he said simply, after she quickly explained her predicament. A strange wave of relief washed over her, pushing the panic aside. She hadn't realized how much she'd been hoping he would say yes. When his familiar, slightly battered car pulled up, the tension between them was thick enough to cut with a knife. But underneath it, there was a different kind of energy, a warmth that made her pulse quicken as she slipped into the passenger seat. "So, another damsel in distress moment," he teased, a playful glint in his eyes. She managed a small smile. "Something like that?" They sped off toward her office building, diving into the heart of the city's chaotic evening traffic. For the first time, Celine saw a completely different side of Damon. He was resourceful, navigating the crowded streets with an ease that bordered on artistry, weaving through honking cars and jaywalking pedestrians. He kept up a steady stream of jokes and lighthearted commentary, chipping away at her stress until she found herself laughing. Genuinely laughing, despite the situation. The sound surprised her, and Shizan glanced over, a warm smile spreading across his face. They finally reached her high-rise office building, only to be met with a new obstacle. A sign on the elevator doors read, "Out of order." Celine groaned. Her office was on the 12th floor. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered, her earlier anxiety returning. Damon just grinned. "Well, looks like we're getting our cardio in for the day." Celine, who prided herself on being confident and in control, suddenly felt clumsy in her heels and evening gown. But Damon stayed right by her side as they began the long climb up the stairwell. He offered a steadying hand on the small of her back and kept her spirits up with his unwavering optimism. His presence was a comforting anchor in her sea of stress. And his reassuring smiles made her heart do a little flutter she tried her best to ignore. About halfway up, her heel caught on the edge of a step. She stumbled, a small gasp escaping her lips as she pitched forward. In an instant, Damon's hands were there, catching her own, his grip firm and steady. He pulled her back upright, and for a fleeting, breathless moment, their eyes locked. The world around them seemed to fade away, the concrete stairwell, the distant city sounds, everything. There was just a silent, unspoken connection crackling between them, a question and an answer, all at once. He held her gaze for a second longer than necessary before clearing his throat and letting go. "Careful," he said softly, his voice a little huskier than before. She could only nod, her cheeks flushing as they continued their climb in a charged silence. Finally, they reached her office. She fumbled with the keys, her hands still trembling slightly, and pushed the door open. They quickly found the invitation and the small package on her desk. Just as Celine was about to breathe a huge sigh of relief, a new wave of horror washed over her. She patted her empty clutch. "My phone?" she whispered. "I left it on the rooftop terrace." She had been up there earlier for a quick break. Damon didn't even hesitate. "Stay here, catch your breath. I'll go get it." Before she could protest, he was gone, his footsteps echoing back down the hallway toward the stairs leading to the roof. She sank into her office chair, the adrenaline of the past hour finally catching up with her. Moments later, the door swung open again. Damon stood there, his hair damp with sweat, his shirt sticking to his chest, but he was smiling, holding her phone aloft like a priceless trophy. "Your chariot awaits." "My lady," he said, bowing dramatically. A bubble of laughter escaped Celine, a mix of pure relief and genuine admiration. The day had been a complete disaster, but somehow, with him, it had turned into an adventure. "See?" Damon teased, leaning against her desk. "No challenge is too big for us." Apparently, the word "us" hung in the air between them, shimmering with new meaning. The frantic rush was over, but a different kind of energy now filled the room. This shared experience, this teamwork, had forged a new bond between them, something neither of them had expected. As they walked back to her car, the awkwardness from their first few encounters had completely vanished. They fell into a natural rhythm, their steps in sync, their conversation easy and flowing. She learned about his passion for restoring old cars, and he listened intently as she talked about the complexities of her work. Yet, beneath the laughter and easy smiles, the spark of tension remained, growing stronger with every shared glance and lingering touch. It was a current of awareness, a pull that neither of them could ignore. This connection was becoming something deeper, something more significant than a simple chance meeting. Celine realized that Damon had crashed into her perfectly curated world not just by mistake, but in a way that challenged her, excited her, and made her feel more alive than her luxurious, controlled life ever had. She found herself wanting to know more about him, to understand the world he came from. And maybe, just maybe, to let him understand hers. Damon, for his part, wasn't immune to the shift between them. He noticed the way her eyes would soften when she looked at him, the small, genuine smiles that played on her lips when she thought he wasn't looking. He felt a pull toward this sophisticated, powerful woman that he hadn't anticipated, a pull that went far beyond the strange circumstances of how they met. By the time they reached her sleek, expensive vehicle a world away from his own, they were both silently aware that their story was far from over. This small adventure, this chaotic race against time, had fundamentally changed things between them. Something extraordinary and undeniable was beginning to grow. As Selene slid into the driver's seat, she turned to him. "Thank you, Damon, for everything." "Any time," he replied, his gaze intense. She drove away, her eyes catching his in the rearview mirror. He was standing on the curb, waving, his figure slowly fading into the city lights. A thrilling mix of anticipation and curiosity flooded her. She had no idea what fate had planned for them next, but she had a feeling that this strange, accidental meeting was slowly, beautifully, turning into a love that neither of them could ever have predicted. And for the first time in a long time, Selene was excited for the unknown. A week later, I was at a charity gala, mingling, sipping champagne. You know how it goes. The grand hall was buzzing with chatter and clinking glasses. And then, I saw him across the room. Damon. He was talking to someone, a confident smile on his face. My heart did this little jump, and this weird pang of jealousy hit me. Jealousy. For a stranger who got into my car by mistake, that was new. It was like a jolt, and I couldn't look away. Just as the thought crossed my mind, his eyes found mine. It was like a scene from a movie. A room full of people, just ... faded away. He excused himself from his conversation and started walking towards me. Every step he took seemed to amplify the beat of my heart. The air around me felt charged, electric. He had this presence that just commanded attention, effortlessly. He stopped in front of me, that warm smile reaching his eyes. "I didn't expect to see you here," I said, a nervous laugh bubbling up. It felt so silly, being this flustered. "I could say the same about you," he replied, his voice smooth and calm. "But I wanted to come. I didn't want our story to end with a wrong car." My cheeks flushed, he remembered. He wanted to see me again. In that moment, the noise of the gala, the music, the hundreds of conversations, it all just disappeared. It was just the two of us, in our own little bubble. We started talking, and it felt so natural, so easy. He told me he'd been looking for ways to support this specific charity, the very one I was helping organize the gala for. He had no idea I was involved. I was so touched. It wasn't just a line. He spoke with such genuine passion about the cause. This guy, this handsome stranger, wasn't just charming. He had a good heart. And then that was dangerous. My admiration for him was growing with every word. Suddenly, there was a commotion nearby. A waiter had stumbled, and a tray of drinks went flying, splashing all over some important papers on the organizer's table. People gasped, but before anyone could really react, Damon was already moving. He stepped in, calm and collected, helping to blot the spilled liquid and reassuring the flustered organizer. He was so resourceful, so quick on his feet. It wasn't just about being a hero, it was his instinct to help, to fix things. I just stood there, watching him, a rush of emotions swirling inside me. Admiration, definitely. But something else, too. Something warmer, deeper. In the middle of the quiet chaos, as he was helping gather the papers, our hands brushed against each other. It was the briefest touch, a spark of electricity that shot straight through me. My heart started racing, just hammering against my ribs. It was a crazy mix of surprise, excitement, and a longing that I couldn't quite name. He looked up at me for a split second, and I saw a flicker of that same surprise in his eyes. The moment passed, but the feeling lingered, a tingling warmth in my hand. After the small crisis was averted, the gala continued. We found a quieter corner to talk, and the conversation flowed even more freely than before. He had this incredible sense of humor, a dry wit that made me laugh. At one point, he leaned in closer, the scent of his cologne filling my senses, and whispered a funny observation about one of the guests. I let out this soft, genuine laugh, a sound that felt light and happy. It was a sound I hadn't heard from myself in a long time. It echoed in my ears, a sweet memory already forming. Just when I thought the evening couldn't get any more perfect, any more like a dream, the universe decided to throw in the biggest twist of all. We were talking about our careers, our pasts, just getting to know each other on a deeper level. I mentioned an old investment I'd made years ago, one that was on the brink of complete failure. It had been a huge source of stress for me at the time. I was just telling the story as a small anecdote about my early business days. As I was talking, I saw a look of recognition dawn on Damon's face. He asked me for a few more details than the name of the startup, the year. I told him, a little confused. And then he said it. He told me about a small, anonymous consulting project he'd taken on years ago as a favor for a friend. He'd helped a struggling little company restructure their finances and avoid bankruptcy. It was the same company. My company. He had saved my investment. He had, without ever knowing it, saved me from a massive financial blow at a critical point in my career. I was stunned. Absolutely floored. The room started to spin a little. The man I met by accident, the man who got into my car, who I had coffee with, who made my heart race with a simple touch, was connected to my life in this profound, unbelievable way. It was like fate wasn't just knocking on my door. It was kicking it down. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he must be able to hear it. He must have seen the shock on my face. "You okay?" he asked, his voice full of genuine concern, his brow furrowed. I could only nod at first, trying to process it all. I finally found my voice, but it came out as a whisper. You changed my life, Damon, without even knowing it." He looked surprised, but a slow, understanding smile spread across his face. He moved a little closer and gently took my hand in his. His touch was warm, steadying. "And you changed mine, Celine," he said softly. "I just didn't expect it to start in the middle of a parking lot, with the wrong car and a big misunderstanding." We both started laughing, not a nervous laugh this time, but a shared, joyous laugh that mingled with the music of the gala. All the awkwardness was gone, replaced by this incredible, undeniable connection. It was real. This spark between us was more than just a fleeting attraction. It felt like destiny. As the night drew to a close, and the guests started to leave, I realized this whole series of accidents had led me to something truly profound. Damon walked me to my car, just like he did that first day. But this time, our hands were intertwined. His fingers were laced through mine. A comfortable, perfect fit. There was no misunderstanding, no confusion. As I got into my car, the right car this time, I felt this thrill of anticipation, a giddy excitement for what was to come. I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my soul, that our story was only just beginning. Days after the gala, I couldn't get Damon out of my head. It was this strange, wonderful feeling, a connection that had blossomed so unexpectedly. I tried to bury myself in work, but every phone call, every email, every meeting felt empty, lifeless. Nothing compared to the memory of his smile, his easy laughter, and the incredible way he made me feel truly seen, not just for my title or my wealth, but for me. I'd find myself staring out my office window, replaying our conversations, the way his eyes crinkled when he was amused. It was distracting, it was exhilarating, and it was a little bit terrifying. My carefully constructed world was being gently shaken, and a part of me loved it. Then, out of the blue, my phone rang. It was him, Damon. My heart did this little jump, a frantic flutter that I hadn't felt in years. He didn't waste time with small talk. He had a proposal, he said. A weekend getaway. Just a small, quiet place outside the city, away from the constant noise and pressure of our lives. A place where we could just talk, laugh, and be ourselves. My mind immediately went into overdrive. My schedule was a nightmare. I had responsibilities, meetings I couldn't possibly miss, and an image to maintain. A millionaire doesn't just drop everything and run off for a weekend with a man she barely knows. It was impulsive. It was reckless. It was everything I wasn't supposed to be. But a voice inside me, a quiet but persistent whisper, urged me to say yes. It was a leap of faith, a step into the unknown, and for the first time in a long time, I listened to my heart instead of my head. The moment we arrived, it was like stepping into another world. The frantic pace of the city melted away, replaced by the gentle hum of nature. The air was cleaner, the light was softer, and for the first time, in what felt like forever, I could breathe. The world seemed to slow down, leaving just the two of us, surrounded by towering trees and the quiet murmur of a nearby stream. We walked along a winding, tree-lined path, the fallen leaves crunching softly under our feet, and we talked. We talked about everything and nothing. Our dreams, the big, audacious ones, and the small, secret ones. Our fears, the ones that kept us up at night. He spoke of his passion for his work, the struggles he'd overcome, and the simple things that brought him joy. And I found myself opening up in a way I never had before. I told him about the pressure of my family's legacy, the loneliness that sometimes crept in despite being surrounded by people, the feeling of living in a gilded cage. With every word, a weight I didn't even know I was carrying began to lift. Damon just listened. He didn't interrupt, he didn't judge, he just offered this incredible warmth and understanding, his eyes reflecting a kindness that felt so genuine, so real. And in that quiet, shared vulnerability, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just attraction anymore. It was deeper, more profound. I was falling for it. Truly, deeply falling. I was on the verge of saying it, of admitting everything I was feeling, when the world tilted. We were walking near a riverbank, the grass still damp from the morning dew. My foot slipped for a split second. There was just air beneath me, a jolt of panic seizing my chest. But before I could fall, Damon's arm was around my waist, pulling me back from the edge. He caught me, holding me securely against him. Everything stopped. The sound of the river, the rustling leaves, my own frantic thoughts, it all went silent. Our faces were inches apart. I could feel the frantic beat of his heart, echoing my own, a powerful, synchronized rhythm. The tension was electric, a current of unspoken emotion passing between us. In that one, breathless moment, our eyes said everything that words couldn't. There was fear, there was relief. But most of all, there was this undeniable, magnetic pull. When we finally, reluctantly, stepped apart, we were both breathless. The casual ease between us had been replaced by a new, charged awareness. The connection that had been simmering just beneath the surface was now impossible to ignore. I could see my own mix of excitement and fear mirrored in his eyes. Was this real? Was this something that could last? Or was it just a fleeting moment, a beautiful dream we'd wake up from? My mind was racing, a whirlwind of hope and doubt. Noticing my hesitation, Damon reached out, his touch incredibly gentle as he brushed a stray strand of hair from my face. His voice was a low whisper, but it cut through all the noise in my head. "Celine," he said, his gaze holding mine, "I think we've both been waiting for this. For something real." And that was it. The dam broke. My heart didn't just skip a beat. It felt like it soared. Tears of pure, overwhelming joy pricked at the corners of my eyes. In that instant, everything clicked into place. The wrong car, the unexpected rain, the chance meetings, even the small misunderstandings. They weren't mistakes. They were steps on a path leading us right here, to this moment, to each other. That weekend was a turning point. We were no longer two strangers who'd met by chance. We were two people sharing laughter under a blanket of stars, whispering confessions by the warmth of a small, crackling fire. Our hearts, once guarded and separate, were now slowly, surely, intertwining. As I sat there, watching the flames dance in the darkness, I realized that life's biggest mistakes are sometimes its greatest gifts. Stumbling into the wrong car that rainy night had felt like a ridiculous error, a silly mix-up. But it wasn't. It was fate, a beautiful, messy, wonderful twist of fate that brought love into my life when I had stopped believing it was possible for me. Our story wasn't over. It felt like it was just beginning. This was the part where the dreams I'd locked away and the reality I was living finally began to meet. Where two hearts that had found each other against all odds started to imagine a future together. As the weekend drew to a close, Celine and Damon made their way back to the bustling city. The magic of their time together lingered in the air, a warm, comforting presence that neither wanted to let go of. The drive back wasn't filled with grand pronouncements, but with something far more intimate. Quiet smiles exchanged across the car, gentle touches that spoke volumes, and bursts of laughter as they replayed the funny, unexpected moments that had woven their hearts together. Stepping back into her opulent penthouse, the familiar luxury felt different to Celine. The towering windows, the designer furniture, it all seemed to pale in comparison to the vibrant new colors Damon had painted in her world. She realized with a jolt just how profoundly her life had shifted in such a short span. What had started as a simple, almost comical mistaken into the wrong car had blossomed into a connection so deep, so real, it was filled with possibilities she had never dared to dream of. The rigid control she once craved now seemed like a cage she was finally free from. Damon walked her to her door, a familiar routine that now felt charged with a new significance. They stood there for a long moment, the silence between them thick with unspoken emotions. The city lights twinkled below, but in that hallway, they were the only two people in the world. The air crackled with anticipation, a sweet tension that was both thrilling and terrifying. Finally, breaking the spell, Damon reached for her hand. His touch was firm yet gentle, a grounding force. He looked into her eyes, his own reflecting a universe of sincerity. "Celine," he began, his voice soft but clear, cutting through the silence. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want you in it." The words hit Celine with the force of a gentle wave, washing over her and filling every empty space in her heart. Her breath hitched, and she felt the prickle of happy tears welling in her eyes. This was it. This was real. A genuine, unscripted moment of pure emotion. She looked at the man before her, the man who had seen past her icy exterior and found the real her underneath. "And I want you, Damon," she whispered back, her voice thick with emotion. A single tear traced a path down her cheek. "I never thought a mistake could lead to this, but I'm so glad it did." A slow, radiant smile spread across Damon's face, mirroring her own. He leaned in, and she met him halfway. The kiss they shared was not one of fiery passion, but of gentle promise. It was a seal on their unspoken feelings. A tender acknowledgement that this was not an ending, but a beautiful, brand new beginning. It was a kiss that promised tomorrow, and the day after, and all the days to come. In the weeks that followed, their connection didn't just continue, it blossomed. Their days were filled with the kind of effortless joy that only comes from true companionship. They explored cozy cafes, got lost in conversations that lasted for hours, and discovered the city together as if for the first time. Their lives were a symphony of shared dreams and inside jokes, punctuated by small, thoughtful acts of love that made even the most ordinary days feel extraordinary. A surprise cup of her favorite coffee, a silly note left on the counter, the simple comfort of holding hands while walking down the street. Selene found herself looking at her life through a new lens. The wealth, the luxury, the power she had once prized above all else, it all seemed like a hollow imitation of happiness. Compared to the genuine warmth and unfiltered honesty Damon brought into her life, he wasn't impressed by her penthouse or her position. He was captivated by her mind, her wit, and the vulnerability she had only ever shown to him. He loved her for who she was, not what she had. Every now and then, her mind would drift back to that fateful night in the parking garage. The wrong car, the startled encounter, the unexpected journey it had set them on. Each time, a rush of profound gratitude would wash over her. It was a humbling, beautiful realization. Without that one simple mistake, she might have spent her entire life in a gilded cage, never knowing the profound joy of being truly seen, truly understood, and truly loved. She might never have found the person who held the key to her own heart. The story of Damon and Selene became a testament to the idea of destiny disguised as chance. It was a living, breathing reminder that love doesn't always follow a script. It often appears in the most unexpected places, at the most unexpected times, turning our lives upside down in the most wonderful way. Their journey proved that sometimes life's smallest, most insignificant accidents can lead to the greatest and most lasting happiness. And as they walked together, hand in hand, facing the future with a quiet confidence and a shared smile, Selene knew, deep in her soul, that their adventure was only just beginning. The love that had been born from a wrong car and a surprising twist of fate was not a fleeting romance. It was the kind of love built to last a lifetime.